Confederation, of course, 1867. We had Confederation. The BNA Act was passed. Section 9124 of the BNA Act states that the federal government will be responsible for Aboriginal affairs across the country. And that's why Department of Indian Affairs was, well, first of all, Indian Act was passed as a result of the BNA Act. And then, of course, as a result of the Indian Act being passed by Parliament at the time, then, of course, they established the Department of Indian Affairs. So that, and of course, that's the reason why Indian Affairs has so much power over us, because of the BNA Act. We want to get away from that BNA Act. We want to get away from the Indian Act, I should say, because that we have to make our own decisions, our own destiny. We have to define our own destiny. That should not be defined for us by Indian Affairs Department. That's something that my ancestors during the Age of Independence, they determined their own destiny. They determined the journey that they would move ahead in the future. Today we can't do that because the Indian Affairs Department has to approve whatever we decide in our First Nations communities. We want to replace the Indian Act with a Self-Determination Act, similar to what the U.S. has in place for Native Americans. They have an element of control. It's not total control because it still has to be. The federal government still has some power over Native Americans, but at least it has more control than what we have in Canadian society. Right now we can't. That was achieved from 83 to 86, and everything that we decided in the council meeting had to be approved by the minister. And I thought that was so wrong. We knew what's best for our communities. We discuss the problems. We formulate solutions, and then we want to implement those solutions, but we couldn't do it because the minister said, no, you can't do it that way, Chief. You have to do it this way. So how can that minister who lives in Ottawa, how can he tell me what's best for Tobique, and he's never been to Tobique, never stepped foot on Tobique. So how can he tell the Chief and Council what's best for Tobique? We have to, that's why I always have a problem with the Indian Act. So we have the age of we have Confederation. Now we have the age of destruction post-Confederation, because now the Department of Indian Affairs is controlling our lives. The Department of Indian Affairs has also continued the policies of English colonial authorities. They wanted to assimilate First Nations people across the country into Canadian society. So they also continued the policy of attacking language, attacking ceremonies. As a matter of fact, the first Indian Act that was passed outlawed these ceremonies. If she was to do a ceremony, if that act wasn't repealed, that section of the act, she would have been put in jail. She would have been jailed for conducting a smudging ceremony, for conducting a sweetgrass ceremony, a pipe ceremony. They were all outlawed. And as a matter of fact, another part of the Indian Act, if you wanted to make a claim of your traditional territory, it was against the law for my ancestors back in the 1920s. It was against law for people of the day, First Nations of the day, to hire lawyers. It was against law. So if they had a claim and then they wanted to take that claim to the court, the Chief and Council of the day or any community members could not go to lawyers and say, we need your legal help. It was against the law, because Indian Act. Indian Act was had that provision. So that's the age of destruction, post-Confederation. Department of Indian Affairs continues the policy of assimilation. We're at the time where I call the age of healing and revival. I believe if you go to any First Nations community in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia and PEI and Newfoundland, if you go to any First Nations community, you will always find sweat lodge keepers. You will find sun dancers. You will find pipe carriers. You will find drum keepers. You will find sweat lodge keepers. So there's a movement back into our traditional way of life. And I believe that as long as we help our children to take on those traditions, to incorporate those traditions into their own personal lives, it will be healing for them. These ceremonies, as Imelda mentioned, these ceremonies are healing. And I felt that healing, that was in my 4-day fast. So if we can help our young people to go back to these traditions and then have them practice those traditions and those ceremonies on a daily basis, it will be healing to the individuals. It will also be healing to the communities. And also, it will, in my view, it will also be healing to New Brunswick. Because now we have community members, we have citizens who are willing to communicate, to dialogue, and to understand one another, and to build on the relationship, to ensure that we have a relationship, a respectful relationship among citizens in New Brunswick. So it's Age of Healing and Revival. So Age of Healing and Revival is also about transforming New Brunswick to ensure that we recognize the contributions of the First Nations, the Wabanakis, and of course in this case the Passamaquoddies, the Wolastoq, and of course the Mi'kmaq. We have to ensure that when we give an official historical account of New Brunswick, we go beyond Anglophones and Francophones. Because in public school system, at the universities, we hear about Anglophones and Francophones, but we don't hear about Wolastoq or the Mi'kmaq or the Passamaquoddies. So we have to transform New Brunswick society to ensure that what John Ralston Saul identifies as the three-pillar society: Anglophones, Francophones, and of course the Aboriginal people are the third pillar. John Ralston Saul also argues that the third pillar, the Aboriginal pillar, is the strongest because of our presence, or the presence of my ancestors, in what is now called Canada. So that's the senior pillar, he said. So I like that concept. I like that. If we agree with that, if we convince the politicians to promote that, then it will make English will be official language, French will be official language, and our languages, our Mi'kmaq, Wolastoq language will be official as well. We're on equal grounds. We all recognize one another. And the public school system will ensure that in the curriculum, you will also know, by the time you graduate from high school, you will know contributions made by Mi'kmaq, Wolastoq people. You will also have some knowledge about the traditions and ceremonies and the worldviews of my ancestors. So both Mel and I are promoting during the Age of Healing Revival. We have to transform New Brunswick society to ensure that the Mi'kmaq, Wolastoq, and the Passamaquoddies are also recognized officially in the New Brunswick story. That's my story.
And I just wanted to add that Health Canada has really been supportive in the work that I do. That there was a time there were very few sweat lodges. I remember when I built my sweat lodge, there was only two other ones. One was at the rehab in the community, and then another one, and then mine. And I remember the controversy with mine. I said, I'm only doing mine until there's enough men to do their own. Today, actually when we left today, there was my neighbor was doing a sweat lodge. And today, Tobique can have a sweat lodge every night. They have that many lodge keepers, so I don't need mine anymore. But I convinced Health Canada, since I work in all of the Wolastoq communities, to help me build a sweat lodge for every community. And I can say today, every Wolastoq community has a sweat lodge, and as part of their healing, as part of the Health Canada initiative to support us in our traditional way of healing. It's been really working well, and stuff, so they've been really supportive in that and making sure that that's supported as part of the healing process. So, sorry, questions? Any, yeah?
Yes.
If anybody knows, you would know. That's what Maria told me.
Yeah.
The new moon ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
What Teresa Downey.
I don't know Teresa Downey.
Well, she's a Passamaquoddy.
Mm-hmm.
She said, "Oh yeah, people used to do
Yes.
new moons, and they called it Biliasi's Jesus,
Yes.
which
Biliasi's
actually
Jesus.
means newborn son."
Yeah. Yeah.
So, is there any knowledge you have of the?
Oh, absolutely. Well, you know what's important about the new moon ceremony? It's a way for us in those 13 moons that I talk about. Every new moon that we get, we're supposed to learn how to let go of burdens from this moon. So as the moon that we're in now, before the next new moon comes, you welcome it and say, I promise the burdens that I just earned and picked up in this moon, I'm not gonna carry to the next one. And you have to make that promise because you have to know how to unload burden baskets, you know, so that you don't carry your burden from one moon to the next moon to the next moon to the next moon. So there has to be a ceremony, and it's that letting go of those burdens, and not carrying them into the next moon. The most important one is that one at the winter time, you know, and stuff in the winter solstice, is because at that one, before the new year came, there was a ceremony that my people used to do, all people used to do, and it's called the forgiveness ceremony. It's also called the wolf ceremony. I call it the wolf ceremony to honor the wolves that came to me in my fast. And what it is I will have a sacred fire. It's on December 21st, in that week. What we'll do is we'll have a sacred fire. I'll get moose meat, and I'll wrap it up in cloth. And then what I'll do around the fire is invite the children, you know, who are looking forward to Santa Claus and all that. And I'll say, I want you to feed the wolf. But the wolf is hungry, not just for this meat that we're passing. The wolf is going to be hungry enough to eat burdens, addictions, suicide thoughts, hurt, pain, whatever you want to give the wolf will eat it. This will be the reward, is the meat. So just to hear the children around that fire, what they're asking for, and then what we'll do is we'll do that. So before the new year comes, we're supposed to go to each of our neighbors, and we would say, and help them win, forgive me if I've said words to you in this past year that may have hurt your feelings. And help them win, forgive me for actions that may have hurt your feelings. Loma, which bilayoses or biligaduk, for the new year that's coming, Creator and our children will witness our new friendship. If we could do that, and that's what it did start from the new moon, so that's for the new year. And then there's a full moon ceremony, and the full moon ceremony it was actually designed for young boys to learn about women's moon times, to be of service to them. So when a young girl was in her moon time, the brothers would have to pick up the chores of that young girl.
Well, Teresa said that people used to do new moon ceremonies.
Yeah.
Because people do full moon ceremonies, and it just came to me later, in later years, that how powerful, which we just had new moon.
Oh, good. Yeah.
This
Yeah,
is
yeah.
last night. Or,
Yeah.
last night was the new moon.
Yeah.
And the new moon is just as powerful.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
people don't honor that, but she said people at Zibiak used to do new
Yeah.
moon ceremonies.
There'd be drummers out there.
Yeah.
There would have been pipes. There would just
And
been
why the name means newborn son?
Yeah.
Why, do you have any explanation for that?
Bilayos is because the moon is a sun.
Yeah.
You know.
So it's
So it's good. So you can call it Bilayos is Jesus. Yeah. And what's important about the word Bilayos is newborn. It's gender free. See, and that was important in our society, not to put too much emphasis on male female, so that there wouldn't be that division. You know, I was lucky enough to grow up with grandparents. My grandfather would do the cooking and the dishes and sewing, and my grandmother would sometimes do the trapping and cleaning of that. And I found that so amazing, growing up in that. Then when I had married a non-Aboriginal man, he didn't understand. What do you mean you want to go fishing? What do you mean you want to be a baseball umpire? You know, and it was difficult because in his society, I wasn't supposed to do that. You know what I mean? So it was really difficult, you know, and stuff in that time. But we don't have words for he and she in our language. And so it's that bilayosis is that the newborn. It doesn't matter whether it's male or female. It's that there's a new spirit.
really one?
Yeah, Elena.
You have a question?
Yes, I was just wondering about when you're fasting, if you're getting how much sleep you're getting or any at all.
Yeah, I usually recommend that if anybody that wants to fast, I'd like to come a year in advance, just to question, just to come and see, just to be just to come in and assist. You might want to be a firekeeper so that you can observe what the other people are going through. There is time for sleep. There's specific time to pray. You know, so I remember one time one of the children that we were putting through, and she goes, how come you guys call this a fast? It takes so long. Because they can't play or whatever.
But if it's sort of like the person that has been doing it longer, if you've been doing it for 10 or 15 years, then you're going to be able to just automatically know when your body needs sleep.
Oh yeah. You're right, and a lot of times it's good catch up. A lot of times most of the people spend most of their time sleeping. But I sound the drum. What I'll do 4 times in the 4 phases of the day, I sound the drum. So as comfortable as you are in the middle of the night, one of your sacrifices, you have to get up in the middle of the night to come and acknowledge that time of the day.
What about for yourself though?
Oh yeah. Well, no, I have. Well, I lately I've been having less helpers, and that's why I'm contemplating maybe doing 1 more year, because you have to have people.
You're bringing out
No,
the spirit.
but yeah.
You would be more energetic. You wouldn't really want to sleep.
There's no, you have to sleep. No, you have to sleep. And so you would do shifts. So what I've been doing is, but before when I was taking people, I would stay up all night and watch the fire to keep it going. But I'm thinking, I'm taking an experience away from them. I want them to see what they see in the fire and being a part of it. So I put them in shift so that they're allowed to talk to each other at that time when they're watching the fire. Then I'll go and rest up for 4 hours. Then I'll come back.
So when you fast, it's always with sort of the children or
the
community and
stuff.
Do you two just do it on your own, like for?
No, it's always with a group. Always with a group and stuff, and it's always planned in advance. So I'll send out a list to the people. This is what you're going to need for physical things, and one of the things we encourage is to stay away from bug spray. Yeah, because there is a difference with mosquitoes come out in the waning and the waxing of the moon, and so we use bear fat. So we bring something natural, to use as to keep the mosquitoes away, as we use bear fat and stuff, as opposed to the bug spray.
So good to see you.
Likewise. Nice, yeah.
I had 2 questions. One of them was, I'd like to ask, who was the Shape and Elder conductor?
Oh my goodness.
That's
Dave. No, Bill. It's been a while. I mean.
In Garden River.
Yeah,
right?
Garden, yeah. If I hear his name, I'll know it. Tom. His first name was Tom.
Okay.
But I don't remember his last name right off the bat.
Tom
But
Pine?
What is that?
Tom Pine or Porter?
Porter. I think Porter
Okay.
sounds more familiar. But you know what? In Elsie Booktuk, we have an elder that does shake and tent. Oh my God, I can't wait to go to his ceremony. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah. My second question is, if we would bring you tobacco, if you could do swap lunch, because I hear that at the last time, last week, there was some young people who expressed the desire to go to a swap lunch.
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
Sorry. And if we would bring you tobacco and offer like a safe place to do it.
Yeah. And it would really be beneficial that before we actually did the lodge, to do a session like this so that we can talk about it. That way, their minds are ready. They're not coming with too many questions. And I wanted, that's exactly what we're doing at UNB. I have permission to build a sweat lodge at UNB. And people are, well, where is it? I said, I want the whole campus, I want every faculty to know what it is first, before I build one. I want the faculty of nursing to know there's another way of healing. I want the faculty of law to know this is a right. I want the faculty of forestry to know that these are why we use alders and cedar and, you know what I mean, and birch and all of that. I want them to know that why these are important to us. I want history to know, you know what I mean, that this is something that they could learn. So, you know, health, there's just so many aspects. So I want to make sure that once it's built, then the whole campus will have learned what it's for, and it's not just for Aboriginal people. So I would rather do it that way, you know what I mean, and stuff. So to come, if I could come in the morning, then I can do the session. Then we can have the lodge that evening and stuff, you know. Yeah.
My question is a little bit more on the political end. I've always maintained that the Department of Indian Affairs should be manned, or woman, by more Native people than white people, you know, the colonial people.
Yes.
Why have you as a group, as natives, not made any exertion to have the Department of Indian Affairs managed and manned by the Native community?
He used to work for Indian Affairs. I'll let him tell you and stuff, the difficulty.
Well, first of all, to answer your question, we've been making that case for quite some time now. When I was chief, I knew the Union of New Brunswick Indians at the time said, we need a First Nations person to be the Minister of Indian Affairs. And that was back in the 80s. But the political factor was that the Prime Minister never agreed with that. The Prime Minister is one, because you know, the Prime Minister is the one that appoints people into different ministries. And we made the case to the Prime Minister, and we made the case to the Cabinet, and they absolutely just refused. We see we don't have the political power to influence decisions made by the Prime Minister. Now, if we had some economic power, political power, then we can go, like, for example, like Irving can control what happens here in New Brunswick, right? He can go to the Cabinet, he can go to the Premier's office and do whatever he wants. We can't do that because we don't have that power that we need to be able to tell the Minister, tell the Prime Minister that we have to have the First Nations person as our minister for Indian Affairs, not Aboriginal Affairs.
Yeah. You had it provincially for 4 years because I remember T.J. Burke
That's right.
that was
Yes.
there.
Yeah.
I personally, I don't feel he did very much.
And you probably
He was, TJ and I had discussions, you know, he was, that's true, he had to be careful. He said, look, you know, my constituency, you know, I have mostly non-natives in my constituency. And if I bring up Aboriginal affairs, First Nations affairs in the Legislative Assembly, then my constituency is going to complain about that. They're going to tell me that I speak for them, and not for the First Nations in New Brunswick. So he said he had to be careful. He wanted to express. He wanted to give us a voice in the Legislative Assembly, but he had to be careful because he was saying that there could be some backlash from his constituents.
Maybe we should have something. I believe the state of Maine has
Yes,
that.
that's right.
Yes, Maine
where
State.
the person is not even elected, but is appointed by the government
Yeah.
to be the Minister of Indian Affairs.
Yeah.
And that way, they have no constituents
That's right.
to answer to, so to speak, except for the native community.
And
Yeah,
it was in
Maine
the same
has-
way with His Honor, Braden Nicholas, when he spoke at the Legislative Assembly on Friday for me for our Red Shawl campaign. He goes, I feel so good that I have the freedom to speak because for 5 years I lost my voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
You could not
and
speak.
so even in that position himself, so now I partnered up with the new Lieutenant Governor, and she's been very supportive, you know what I mean, in making sure to generate worthy causes, as she puts it, and stuff, you know. So, but she probably has to be careful too on how much Aboriginal things she does out of the Lieutenant Governor's house and stuff, you know, so.
Thank you.
I'm gonna just step in just for a second, and this is wonderful. And I know when Leslie and Frederick came the first week, Leslie said she was the timekeeper.
Yeah.
And I'm conscious of the time, and partly because I have to catch a ferry, or I'm not gonna get home tonight. And I know other people have traveled from a distance, but I don't want to end the discussion, and I would say if people want to stay and can stay for a bit, I know you guys need to get back to Fredericton as well. But this just means that we need to have you back again. And we'd love to have another session, and we will talk about the possibility of a sweat lodge. Amazing, and I'm gonna follow up in terms of the October 28th to 30th. I do have the information I just got today, so we'll pass that information on. But I do just want to, and I'm not sure what we'll do about the smudging ceremony. Maybe the next time, is that
okay.
fair?
Okay.
Sorry for.
But I can just light one and just kind of direct it, if we could just all stand up. And I'll let David, and I'll do a quick song. So, do you have to read? Do you have to read?
Yeah, I have to read.
Just, yeah, just to read it. So I'll just light one of these, the same. Just put it close so it has the other ones don't burn. Here's the fan. And this is the fan from Elder Charles Salmon, just so you know that it's coming your way, and so he could just do that. And I'm just going to sing a quick song. He could just do it to the 4 directions here.
4 directions?
Yeah.
Okay.
So and then we can just move with you to the 4 directions.
Okay.
So,
East, I think east is over here, right?
Yeah.
Everybody face the east, please.
Okay. And the song I'm going to sing is called a Wolastoq song.
South, please.
Wolastoq is flowing, flowing and growing. Wolastoq is flowing down to the sea. Mother, carry me, a child I will always be. Mother, carry me, a child I will always be.
North, everybody face north.
Yes.
West.
Thank you.
Oh, we want we had lost notes there for a second.
I would like to thank you very much. And what you did tonight